you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. Basically, Android is everywhere. It's available on smartwatches, TVs, cars, and recently Samsung made a fridge which is Android inside it. Okay, so Android is everywhere. That's what we're going to talk about. Probably you'll have Android on your toaster soon. Maybe not yet. Okay. So, what are kind of possibilities that happen when you put something like a full-fledged operating system into a car? This is just a video shared by the Wired magazine in July 2015. Somebody. The Chrysler Jeep has a smart system for automatic parking. Many cars have it. So somebody was able to hack the car and without the driver's consent was able to get it off the road. So it happened in 2015. Okay, so this is not using Android Auto. This used its own proprietary system inside the device. So it's not that bad yet. What we can do with Android Auto is much more limited than controlling cars over the Wi-Fi. So we're going to talk about Android Auto. And I'm Arnav, Gupta. And I've been working with Android for ever since it released for 5-6 years now. I mostly have worked with the operating system, getting Android to work on devices, the kernel level of the drivers. I've worked less with apps, more with the framework and the drivers. Just a brief overview of how Android Auto looks like. This is if you install Android Auto, this is how your dashboard looks like. It has an onboarding process which has a couple of screens. It says, first thing it tells you how to talk to Google. There's going to be a microphone at the top. You click on that and you can do OK Google on that. And all the things that you need quickly, all the things that are available on Android Auto are there in these buttons at the bottom. Apart from that, there isn't anything in Android Auto available. This is the home screen of Android Auto when you open it. So the home screen is where you get all your notifications. This is what dashboard looks like when you turn on Android Auto and you start driving. So the buttons are, there's one button to open maps, one for opening the dialer. This is called the home button or notifications button because it does both things. This is your music button, and finally there's one last button which basically takes back to your dashboard. Basically, Android Auto is installed inside your car manufacturer's system. So when you click that button, you go back to the manufacturer's original UI, the main screen. Because some cars have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay both together, so you can go back to the manufacturer's screen with that button. So what's the Android Auto architecture like? So basically, you have your head unit. In some countries it's called DIN, somebody calls it head unit, or you call it dash. There's a box that goes into your car dashboard. Okay, and it has a screen. So it has outputs for your audio system to your car. And there are two interfaces via which data comes in from your car to the dashboard. That's OBD and canvas. So vehicular data mostly, the speed it's going on, the mileage, fuel, all of that stuff mostly comes through the OBD. Rest of the electronics that you can control in your car, like lighting and indicators and all of that stuff, that happens through the canvas. So these two interfaces pretty common. All cars have these two interfaces. Depending on the kind of dashboard it is, depending on the hardware, it would either have some keys or it would have a touch screen. Android Auto supports both the things. It can work without touch as well. And there's your smartphone. The thing is, what happens is the smartphone renders a screen. It creates a MPG4 stream, a proper video, and it sends to the head unit. So there is no smart data going on from your phone to the head unit. It's just a video, okay? And the head unit sends back, as of now, Android Auto version 2, it only sends back sensors and touch point. So sensor data, it gets you stuff like, if this device comes with a GPS, so you get, when you look for GPS sensors, you will find an additional one inside your phone, and you will see another GPS device connected when you are paired. So very limited sensors, GPS accelerometer, and if there are any touches, users touching it on the screen, so the touch point data goes back to the phone. But as you can see, it's a very, it works like a dumb terminal. It's not a very smart interface. just touch points coming in and video going out. So it's not like there isn't any operating system, there isn't the Android operating system stack working on this part. So the entire thing happens there. Your phone creates the video and sends it to the device. So right now, when we want to build apps with Android Auto, we can build only two types of apps. One is audio-based apps. So you can create internet radio station, an app like Spotify, Google Music, or anything you want to play audio. So those apps are possible. And second type of apps possible is messaging apps. So anywhere you can show a notification and the user can reply to that. Okay. So these are the only two apps that are possible using Android Auto as of now. If you go to the Android Auto website, you look, there's some subtext written. Google has said that maybe in the future versions, people will get access to OBD and Canvas data, but right now it's not available because the car manufacturers who have partnered with Google to get Android Auto on their devices, none of them have agreed to share the OBD and Canvas data over the Android Auto API as of now. So you don't get access to stuff like mileage, refueling, and all of that information is not available via Android Auto as of today. We can hope in the future it will be available. So technicalities about building apps for Android Auto, you have to target an SDK version of 21 or above. Anything below 21, target SDK won't work. SDK also has to be 21 and above. It does not work with Lollipop phones. I think that line probably is wrong. A few months ago, Google sent an update on the Android Auto app. It now works with Lollipop phones. I'm not sure, we'll have to check out, but support with Marshmallow and above is much better. And it needs the Android v4 support library. Okay. So you have to add this thing in your app's main Android manifest XML file, that tag called automotive app, and that would make your app Android Auto enabled. And inside that, you'll basically so you have to add tags users name, and this is media written here if it's not visible to the back. So you can add two tags, users name media, and another tag you can optionally add is users name messaging, which of the two services you're using based on that. You have to add some metadata. You have to basically create a icon of your app specifically for Android Auto. So that's the icon that comes up when your app is available inside Android Auto. So this is the notification small icon metadata that's used for your Android apps icon. When we are designing apps for Android Auto, so we have to rethink the entire process by which we design for a normal smartphone or a tablet. The thing is, the approach, what Google says is an upside down approach, is that you need to keep the users away from your device. Because on a phone, you want to keep the users engaged. You want the person to be spending as much time as he can on the device, looking at the screen. You want the attention of people. That's what apps like Facebook do. They make you addicted to the app. When you developing for Android Auto, you need to do the opposite. You need to make sure that he does not die in a road accident. He looks at the road, not on the screen. So basically, UI needs to be very simple, and you cannot make complex UI because Google has created certain constraints outside which you cannot really create UI. Buttons should be large, and maximum navigation depth should be 6. So if there's a menu item and you click on that, there's another menu. You click on that, there's another menu. So that depth can be 6. You cannot go deeper than 6. That's also a constraint. That's a hard limit. If you create more than 6 levels, the user will not be able to go to the 7th level. Okay. And here's the other thing. There is no back button on Android Auto. So from any app, you have to come back to the home screen. So the concept of multitasking isn't really there. Things that you should not do: don't make more options, don't make your app UI low contrast, and don't add too much scrolling. And finally, video or picture-based advertisements are not allowed in Android Auto. some of the things that are different from normal Android UI is that the navigation bar is called the activity bar, and then it has these buttons. It does not have back, home and recents like most Android phones have. And then there is this mode is, for example, this button is to open the music. So if you click on it once, it opens the default app for music. If you click on it twice, you get a list of all music apps installed, and you can choose which music app you want to. So that's the navigation that's available. There is no list of apps, so because there can only be mapped apps of audio type, and messaging apps you cannot open directly. They open from notifications. We're just going to cover that, how that happens. So this is called the demand layer, which is like how OK Google works on your phone, Google Assistant or Google Now. So that's called the demand layer in Android Auto, and it's always available as a button at the top right. You cannot make that top right button go away from your app. It always has to be there. And the notification screen does not exist because the home screen is the notification screen. When you go to the home screen, you see all latest notifications, messages or navigation related things. And in the status bar here, you only get these three things: signal, battery, and the time. This is the signal and battery are of your phone. How much battery your phone has, how much signal your phone has. Okay. The cards in the home, they have a large icon. They have two-line text, title, subtitle, and they have an image. All notification icons, all of notifications have to be like this. Navigation drawers are always in landscape mode because car dashboards are usually used in landscape mode. So you need to, if you add some details, so you add them here instead of adding a two-line view. Don't make two-line items, make one-line items, so in the same screen you can show more items. If there is some extra details, show it on the right side. So make it like this if you want to show some details. Okay. You can have categories like this. Categories have a icon, arrow icon, caret. It opens up another screen. So this kind of thing, that's what I was saying. You cannot make more than 6 levels. Notifications come on the screen like this when you're say listening to some music. Here's a notification. So you can do two things. When notification comes, you can click anywhere here, and you get an option to reply to this notification. Or you can click on the cross button that comes up here, and this notification goes away. It's not going to be there in your home screen anymore. So you basically dismiss that. But this notification will remain on your phone. It is not going to go away from your phone's notifications. It will just not be there on the dashboard of your car. Okay. So how to test in Android Auto? Obviously, you can buy a costly car which comes with Android Auto inside that. But obviously, that's not a good solution. So we can test out Android Auto apps on your laptop. So you install the desktop head unit simulator. So if you have Android Studio or the Android SDK manager, go inside that, inside list of things that you can install. Like right at the bottom you will see extra tools, and inside extra tools you will see desktop head unit simulator. So install the desktop head unit simulator, and you need to connect your phone to your laptop, and then download the Android Auto app on your phone, and then you need to do this thing. This is called port forwarding in ADB. So run this command, ADB forward TCP 5277 TCP 5277. What this basically means is that you're doing the reverse. Like basically when you use ADB, you connect from your laptop to your phone. Now you want to let the phone connect back to your laptop on port 5277 because that's the port on which the desktop head unit simulator runs when you're running on your computer. Okay. The desktop head unit simulator is basically a binary file. It's an exe file. Just run it, like go to the command line, run desktop head unit. It starts off. Okay. In your Android Auto app, right there at the top in the settings, you will see something called Start Head Unit Server. So it's also similar to how you enable developer options on your Android device. So you have to click on Settings button 7 times, and then this option comes up. Okay. When this option comes up, you click on Start Head Unit Server, and if the port forwarding is done, So you will see that your phone says that you are in Android Auto mode, and on your laptop, on the desktop head unit simulator, you will see the screen that comes up on your car dashboard if you're using a real Android Auto device. Okay. So how to make Android Auto audio apps? Okay. So when you're making audio apps, you need to create a couple of things. You need to create a media browser service. Basically, you need to extend media browser service, create your own service, and then you have to add a intent filter for this intent, android.media.browse.mediabrowserservice. This intent is required, so your app becomes available as a music player on the Android device. Then you have to basically create a new media session. This, if anybody of you have created music apps on on Android phone as such, not Android Auto. Normally Android music apps, you make it like this. You create a media session, and then you create a media session callback, which is to handle actions like play, pause, skip song, and all of that. Okay. So here's a thing with audio apps. This UI is fixed. You cannot create an XML file to create the UI. What you have is you can only give a menu.xml to create this list, and you can add only 4 items. If you add more than 4 items, that's not going to be visible on this menu at all. So these buttons are going to be fixed. There's going to be a playlist button. You can do whatever you want when clicking the playlist button. You can show a list of songs, or you can show a list of albums. That's up to you. But this button is fixed. There's going to be a last song, next song. There's going to be a play pause button, and clicking on this button converts this bar into this UI. So when you click on this, it basically toggles between these two views. And here you can add 4 buttons. These 4 you can customize. You can add your own icon. You can add your own action. So for example, this is a sample app. There's like, dislike, broadcast, and shuffle. It's up to you, but you can add only 4 actions. And you cannot change the UI. You can change the colors, but you cannot really define your own XML here. As per Google guidelines, use shallow navigation. Shallow navigation is basically instead of so you create something like this, favorites, recent playlist. You don't create a lot of menu items. Something like this where everything is a submenu. That's not recommended. Then create large clickable sections. Okay, don't make small lines because users will have problem. They will have to concentrate on the screen to click it. Don't make like that. The second type of apps that we can build is the messaging apps. So messaging apps, you have to create 3 things in the messaging apps. You have to create 2 broadcast receivers, one called the read receiver and one called reply receiver, and then you have to create a service. What read is basically is when the user clicks on a notification. You need to speak out the text of the notification to the user. Reply is when the user what happens. We'll just go through the process and you will see what happens. Text not visible. It's visible on the screens. So you have to register the receivers, the 3 receivers, and you have to add intent filters. The intent filters are action message read and action message reply. Okay. So when message arrives, basically you have to create a notification. You create a notification manager compat, and you create a notification, and then when the user replies, in that case, we use the we basically have this. So this gives you the string, the user that has replied. So the process of converting the voice to text does not happen inside your app. It happens via Google, and Google just hands you the text back to you. Okay. So we just check out how the flow happens. Yeah. So this will make it clear. So what happens is first you notify of the message. Now it could be so that, say for example, the WhatsApp app. So for example, you can make a logic that for group chats, you don't show it on Android Auto, but for individual chats, you show it on Android Auto, so something like that. So all the notifications that your app generates on the phone, you don't need to generate all of them on Android Auto. You can generate only few of them on Android Auto, selectively. Okay, and then two things can happen. The driver touches your notification. If the driver does not touch your notification, it stays for 2-3 seconds and then it goes away. It's available in the overview. Overview means the home screen where all the notifications are there. So the user can go back to his home screen and click on that later on if he wants to. So whenever he touches that, either at the same moment or later on, what happens is it would have the notification object is going to have a field called message. Google now will read that out to the user. And then this part is this logic, you cannot change this logic. Google will automatically ask the user, do you want to reply to the message? Okay, you can't stop the step from happening. Then the user composes the reply, and this entire thing happens not on your app's UI, it happens between the user and Google. When the reply has been composed, then Google sends an intent into your app with the string text of whatever the user had been speaking. So an example would be like this. Driver says, I want to reply. Google Voice says, what's the message? User says, I will be 10 minutes late. Please start without me. I will find you when I get there. Google Voice says, here is your message to first name, last name, whoever you are sending to. I will be 10 minutes late. Please start without me. I'll find you when I get there. Do you want to send it? This you cannot change. Google will ask this exact message every time. Google does not let you configure that part. You can say yes or no. If you say yes, what Google will do is send an intent to your reply receiver, and then you can do whatever you want to. You can send that message back, or you save it for sending later, whichever way you want to handle it in your app's logic. So now getting back there, basically we create a on-receive function in our this service, message read receiver, where we receive the message as an intent and we create a notification that comes up on the Android Auto screen. Then this is in the message reply receiver. In the message reply receiver, in the on receive, we basically get a car sequence, we get a string, which is the reply. Then you can basically create a get message text function, which basically gets the string from the speech recognition service, and you can modify how the notification looks like. You can set a content text, you can set a when, you can set the sender's name, and you can add a small icon and a large icon and all of that stuff. So it will show up on the user as icon of your app, then who sent that message. Under that there will be a subtitle of that message, and then there will be a reply button accordingly. So that's what happens. Now some basic guidelines of building Android Auto apps is you should follow day and night coloring modes, because too bright screen at night while driving is distracting. So we'll have a day mode and a night mode like this. You might have seen it in Google Maps. So when you're using Google Maps, after sunset it becomes dark. Okay, because that's an app that is used inside the car. So for all apps that are supposed to be used inside a car, you should have a day mode and night mode. If you're using Oreo or above, so there is an easy way to do that using the Themes API in Android. You can very easily switch from a darker shade of your app. So I just conclude that with a couple of things that we need to keep in mind, both when we are developing Android Auto apps and also when we are using Android Auto. So obviously Google Maps does not work very well a lot of times. And when you're replying, so make sure you concentrate on the road. And these are kind of advices you already know. This more important advice here is that your phone renders the screen on the device. Okay, so a video rendering process is running on your phone, and it has a constantly on Bluetooth, Wi-Fi direct or USB connection over which it is streaming the data. So it's like you're live streaming a video from your phone when you're using Android Auto. So it takes a lot of battery, and in a lot of phones it will heat up the phone also very fast. So it's not a very ideal solution, but Google figured out that if you want to put the Linux kernel and the Android APIs into somebody's device, the car manufacturers are not ready for that. So what they are ready for is that we will have a very thin client on which you can render a video. So that's how Android Auto is designed. So Android Auto is very different from the other non-phone Android systems, like on Android smartwatch. A real Android is running on your wrist. When you're using Android Things or you're using Android TV, there is the entire Android operating system stack running on that device, and your phone just pairs and sends some data, gets back some data. And this is a very different kind of a setup. There is no Android OS on the device, so you need to take care of the fact that a lot of battery is being used when you're using your phone. So that's why it's recommended to keep your phone connected by wire to the dock. Although some phones support Android Auto over Bluetooth, but that's why that will drain a lot of battery. So stuff that you can read about if you want to develop Android Auto apps is obviously the overview is on android.com/auto. There is step-by-step guides on creating audio-based apps or messaging apps on developer.android.com/training/auto, and there are two sample apps created by Google in their Google Samples GitHub repository. One is called Android Messaging Service, and another is called Android Media Browser Service. This is an example of how to reply to messages from Android Auto. This is a Legend music player. It will show you the list of songs and playlists on your phone, and you can run them from your app. So these are a very good place to start. These are like you can use them as a skeleton to start building your Android Auto apps. So that be it in this presentation. Obviously the floor is open for questions, but even later if you want to ping me, that's my mail, my Twitter, and my GitHub. So I'll just open up for any questions that we have on Android Auto.
Thank you, Arnav. Now it's time to ask questions. So you can use microphones, or you can go to these microphones.
So yeah, there's a question there.
So what I wanted to ask is, can you really, or maybe sometime in the future, if you have any information about that, can you really develop anything else rather than messaging or media apps? For example, maybe a news service when you get a notification of your news, and basically car asks you if you want to listen to it, what exactly is written in?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And the thing is, when you look at the Android Auto documentation, they say messaging apps, and you might feel like it's designed only for messaging. But if you look at the code and the API, you can basically use that same API for creating a news app. As of now, today only. So you create a news app, and you send notifications for news items. And in that notification, in the message body, you send a summary of the news item. So the user gets notification, he clicks on that, and Google says, do you want to listen to the message? User says yes, and you read out the news article for him. And after that, Google will say, do you want to reply? Obviously, that's a bit of a problem there, because it will say, do you want to reply to XYZ app? And so the user can just say no, right? So, but you can use the messaging service to create non-messaging things as well. So I tried that out. I made something like that for actually, traffic alerts. So there is a service in India where you can get traffic alerts if there are road accidents or something. So it just sends a message, and you can't reply to that message, but you can use that API to create something like that.
the microphone will ask. Any other questions?
Thanks for your talk. Do you have any information about new version of Android Auto which can control some systems of auto, for example, temperature in auto, and read some data from the car system?
Yeah,
You know something about it?
So actually, I have some friends who work at Ford, and they work closely with the Google team to integrate Android Auto into their car's devices. So what I gather, like this is sort of an official information I gather from my friend, is that Google has the APIs internally. They have that to do it. They just want all the car manufacturers on board, because some of the manufacturers are not agreeing to make available some of their data. So if they release it in the current form, what will happen is that you will create Android Auto apps, and it will have some extra functionality in some cars and it will not work on some other cars. So that's the kind of problem that we'll have. So Google is trying to push for getting all the, they have this Open Automobile Alliance, all the car manufacturers who are supporting Android Auto. So they're trying to get everybody together and add data like temperature outside and refueling data, so you can calculate mileage of your car automatically via an app. So they are trying to do that, but it's a legal problem right now, not a technical problem right now.
Any other questions?
Is it possible to have one Google Play entry for regular app and Android Auto application? How can I integrate this Android Auto app with my regular app when I have?
You want to make two separate entries on Google Play Store, or you want one entry?
I want one entry, but I have two apps. One regular and other that I want to use with my, and the other is Android app, Android Auto. Okay.
So do you mean just you want to reuse some code of your regular app in your
No,
app?
I start again. For example, you have a messaging app.
Yes.
Okay? It's published in Google Play.
Yes.
And you want to extend functionality and allow users use this on their automobiles.
Yes.
And how I supposed to do this task?
So basically, you just add Android Auto support and make an update to your app.
Is this will be a separate application, or I can integrate it?
Integrated. You actually cannot make a separate application. You have to make both of them the same application.
Thank you.
You will have a little bit of disadvantage. Your min SDK has to be 21, so you won't be able to run the same app on below Lollipop devices. Yeah, that's a problem. So you'll probably have to create two apps, one for below Lollipop devices and without auto support, one for Lollipop and above with auto support.
But it will be one Google Play entry. If
You can do that as a one Google Play entry, and you can create two APKs with different SDK versions. Yes, that you can do.
May I ask, is it possible or is it planned to be possible to develop apps for Android Auto using a hybrid approach, like for example Xamarin or some other hybrid frameworks?
I think not. Using those frameworks, the UI layer is composed very differently. The thing is, with Android Auto, you cannot actually compose the UI there are some APIs where you inject some XML files and the UI gets created. So there are some existing templates, and you can only change the icons or the actions a little bit. So it's very deeply integrated with their Java API. So at best you can use Kotlin to develop Android Auto apps. But apart from Java and Kotlin, there's not much else you can do. For now, because I looked at the way React Native or Xamarin works, it won't be very easy to integrate it unless you write a lot of Java code, and it would almost be like a similar effort of creating an Android app itself.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah.
So thanks once again for your explanation of Android Auto system. And my question is, so as I know, Android Auto cars delivered with pre-built screens. Is there a possibility to connect another one screen to this system and have in the car two screens? And for example, one screen used for messaging app and another screen for plane.
In the same app.
In the same car, yeah.
Two different screens.
Yes,
Two different screens in the one car.
So I don't think that would be supported as of now, because Android is designed to work with a single screen. So it does not work with two screens together, and two apps cannot be open simultaneously. Only one app can open at one time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard from you talking that you said that there is possibility to connect a new screen by Bluetooth or by USB or.
Yeah, so if the two devices are completely separate, there should not be just two screens, they need to be two separate devices. So, two dashboards, in that case it's possible. Because they both need to have their own instances of the Android Auto rendering engine. So how Android Auto runs is there is a rendering engine which shows the video and sends the touch back to the phone. So you'll have two separate devices with two rendering engines, and maybe that's possible. But your phone can connect to only one car at a time, because your phone will then see them as two different cars, as two different devices. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, if no more questions, then thank you, Arnav. Thank you again for a very useful presentation.
Thank you so much.